That's right, friends. We're here. It's Monday. We're back with another episode of Pink's Pixels this wonderful night. And for our lovely audience, you might be over here on Twitch, you might be over on YouTube, wherever platform you happen to find us. I'm glad that you're here with us. That's the important thing. And I love that we're just trying to branch out and reach more people where they are. I think so oftentimes we might have a mindset of like, we have to go to this one person or this one place. But as we talk about trying to be more welcoming to others, trying to be more accessible, what that means is that we have to adapt. We have to be willing to put ourselves out there. We have to try new things. So tonight we are restreaming for the first time to cross both platforms. So, ooh, look at us, right? But it's important for us to celebrate these victories, right? These new ways in which we're trying to welcome more people as part of our community. Because let's be real, we have something really special here. We have a place that welcomes voices that are not always heard or valued or appreciated the way that we should. And it gives us a chance to gain perspective, empathy, understanding through the experiences of others. And it's such a wonderful space that has enriched my life, many of yours. And we want to welcome more people into this space. So it's such a thrilling endeavor for us to take this next step out. And who knows what platform we'll be tackling next. So, coming more to a platform near you. But for tonight, here we are for our wonderful Twitch, for our wonderful YouTube, or for anyone watching later at a podcast or a restream or wherever else you happen to find it. I'm glad you're here with us. It's a choice of what kind of content we take in, from the books we read, the TV shows we watch. All of it is a chance of what we choose to welcome into our lives. The stories we hear, the arguments we take in, the people we choose to care about. And so choosing to be here tonight and joining us in our recording, joining us in our show, it's a choice that you're making to say, this is the type of content I want in my life. These are the types of perspectives I want to hear about. These are the type of people I want to know about. And I appreciate that. I thank you for your time, your attention, and your willingness to hear the voices of others. And every week we have amazing guests. And tonight we have an absolutely stellar guest. Excuse my immediate volume change, but I cannot wait. I cannot, forget it. I'm done talking. Let me bring in our amazing guest. I'm going to toss this floor over to her. If you all be ever so kind, please help me welcome Mari. Come say hello to us, Mari.
Hi everyone, I'm Mari and I am a game dev with a specialization in live operations, and video games has just been my entire life. I grew up with a PlayStation 2 that was handed down to me by my dad, which I know a lot of people will say that makes me feel old, but yeah, the PlayStation 2 was my first console and it's just been games ever since. And now I am living the dream, also working in video games, so I live a happy life. I'm
Here we go.
excited to be here.
That's right. Living the happy life. I will say I feel a little judged when you said like the PlayStation 2 because I started with like the Atari. So yeah, it's not that old, okay? but we all have like our starting console and it sticks with us. Right? No matter where we are.
Yes.
Are you still a PlayStation person?
I am. My boyfriend and I, we live together, and our living room has a setup of 3 TVs with all the PlayStations. We have the original PlayStation, we have a PlayStation 2, we have 2 PlayStation 3s, 2 PlayStation 4s, and a PS5. And they're all set up and still being used.
Perfect. As they should be. They're like, every piece of technology here is important and it serves a purpose. So we get rid of nothing. Yes. Good choice.
Mm-hmm.
Good choice. I love it. This is a technology household. I think that's really interesting. It shows what you really love. Now, I will say, typically when people say like, this is my day job, it's different from what they like to do at home at night. You don't often hear a lot of accountants like, I work in accounting all day. And you know what I like to do for home at home, for fun is I love to do extra accounting. So you as a game dev, right? Like that's what you do all day. And then at night you're like, let me take in these works that are like the product of what I make.
Yes, it's hard to turn it off sometimes because I would go play a game and I would just be like, why are we not doing this? And just break it down in my head. And I remember when I first started my job and I was talking to my old coworker, Frank.
Mm-hmm.
we were just chatting and discussing kind of personal things. And he goes, yeah, I play video games, like for fun. And
Yes.
it didn't register in my head what he meant at the time. I just thought it was a weird thing to say. Oh, yeah, for fun. Do we not all play games for fun?
Yes. Yes.
But now that I've been in the industry for some time, I understand what he meant by that.
Yes. Yes. The separation of it. Do you spend a lot
hmm
of time playing the games that you help develop, or you're like, I am going to look at something else and play a very different game or a different genre, even?
It's hard to escape it. There's just a lot of overlap in games nowadays,
Yeah.
and anytime that I don't download something, I just think, wow, I could see the connection here. Even when Mike, my boyfriend, when he's talking
Hmm.
about a game that he's playing, and he plays a lot of Call of Duty and Battlefield and all that,
Yeah.
and he is the type of person to purchase like skins and all that,
Yes.
which is my job is to make those kinds of in-game purchases. And I every time he mentions something, he's like, I would never buy that. And I can't help but dig in and be like, why?
Yeah.
Why not?
Hmm.
What would make you buy that?
Yeah, yeah. You're like, okay, thinking brain, how do I make this more marketable? Got it. Thank you
hmm
for. It's like you have your own, audience interviews that you get to conduct right then and there, right? Like,
hmm
you are my
Yep.
sample size. Thank you.
Yes. So it really helps that he plays video games.
Would it be harder if he didn't like, if he just didn't understand or didn't like video games? Like, there's no connection here.
We probably would never have ever met each other. Honestly, because
Yeah.
our love story started with Warzone, which is a
Oh,
Call of Duty battle royale.
yes. Whew. That's an intense game to get started with. Wait, did you all meet online or was it in person?
It was online. We played together for almost a month straight before
Oh.
I I asked him out and I said, "So, do you want to go somewhere? Do you want to meet in person?"
Mhm.
And at the time, we were in the same city. I was interning for the IRS in DC,
Yeah.
and he was working for one of the big fours. And
Mm.
um, we went to the Spy Museum. I let him choose the place, and then we went to the Spy Museum, met up in person, and just clicked instantly. The chemistry was both in person and just virtually.
Oh, I love that. I think that's amazing. And I mean, it kind of shows a little bit how technology is changing how we live. Like I remember
hmm
when people were first thinking like online dating was kind of a scary place, or I remember when people did VHS dating.
Yes.
But now it's not just even going on apps that you may have, but now it's in gaming space. Heck, well, there was just a story recently that a couple met via Duolingo, right?
Wow. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, they were like cheering each other on, and then they're like, "Hey,
Mhm.
you're kind of cute," and then they kept talking as they were learning languages together, which I think is really interesting. But it kind of shows how sometimes when we think of games, we often think, or just a lot of external people who don't identify as gamers just see it like as only a hobby. But you see it as a
Right.
profession, you see it as a community. I mean, you see it as a social place where you've made relationships that really matter to you.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many games in my life that I played and have long-lasting relationships.
Mm.
There are people that I met online that just never met on person, but for 9, maybe 10 years, we've still talked online. We're still friends on Snapchat. We still keep up with each other's lives,
Mhm.
all of a game that we played sometime in high school, however many years ago it was.
Eons ago. We're not counting. We're
Yeah.
not counting. Let me ask this because I think a lot of people see this. What game has given you the most friendships?
Interesting. That's a really hard one. I think I would say it actually was a mobile MMORPG. It was called Iruna Online, and I played it so much. I played it during my classes in high school, which kids do not advise. um, do good in school,
That's
get
right.
good grades,
That's right.
pay attention. Um, but I played it so much, and I made such a lot of friends during that time. I don't talk to all of them anymore. We do still have a Discord server, and some of them, like I said, I still keep in touch with through Snapchat stories and connecting here and there. But
Mhm.
we had this huge friend group, and it was interconnected through other guilds in the game, and we just we played for so long, and it fell off when I went to college because I just didn't end up gaming as much when I went to college. But
Same.
there was just such a sense of community, and it was really funny because being in high school, kind of falling in love with the idea of just being your own adventurer in this world that you're exploring with your new friends.
Mm,
Like you're just experiencing an escapist life with other people and you're sharing it together. You're creating your own stories together. It
yeah.
was beautiful. We even had
Aw.
fake marriages and weddings, and it was so funny, but it was a beautiful time, and all
Yeah.
from a mobile game.
Yes. Yes. I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting it to be a mobile game. I maybe that's because of my own lack of experience with those kind of games. I was thinking something really more low key and conversational, like Animal Crossing, Pokemon Go. So I think it's really interesting in broadening again, like what games do we see as legitimizing as part of the gaming space and as
Hmm.
gamers? Hmm.
Yes, absolutely. And I
Hmm.
think with mobile games, there was initially a sort of feeling that mobile games weren't really gaming because people would associate more casual games to mobile gaming like Candy Crush, and it's really simple, but it's still a game, but
Mm-hmm.
people who play it don't really consider themselves as gamers or anything like that. But there is such a wide variety of games in the mobile space, and if you think about it, it's the most accessible way to game
Mm-hmm.
because at this day and age, excuse me, at this day and age, who doesn't have a phone? Um,
Right.
so it's harder to get a PC setup or a console setup, and you still need a TV. But on your phone, it's all in one place, so it's a lot more accessible for a lot more people.
Yes, it certainly helps break economical barriers and it
Hmm.
challenges people to think like maybe I could be a gamer. What was it recently? The U.S. What was it? Treasury, Janet Yellen. She is a massive Candy Crush player, like level I think over 1,000 in Candy Crush, right? And that's not someone you would ever say like, yeah, the the treasurer secretary of the United States is not what people would put as like the face of like that's a serious mobile gamer, but she is.
Hmm.
She even admits that she's very much so addicted to the game, right? And how focused and how caring she is, and how before she would say like, oh, mobile games they don't interest me, like those are for younger audiences. But it really does. It opens that door for more people to think like maybe I could. I'm still trying to convince my mother that she's a gamer because she does do things like Candy Crush or like the word games. I'm like, it's a game on your phone, so you're still a
Hmm.
gamer, right?
Exactly. Yeah. The word gamer in the community has just expanded so much. It's just a part. It's hard to not be a part of it.
Yes, yes, yes. And it's fun once you get a part of it. Now, I, for people who are a bit shy, right? So they see and they hear of people like finding good gaming communities, people that they love to connect with. Heck, even some people then choosing to move and meet IRL, go to cons together. Where does it begin, right? So if somebody's like, I'm new to video games, or I finally feel comfortable reaching out, where do they start saying like, hey, I'm new here, I want to connect? How did you start going from like playing just with people to saying like, let's share Snapchats, let's meet up at places? Because that's a big request sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and this is coming from someone who is also an introvert. I am an INFJ, and I am very much not a social person, especially after college. I had my time, and now I'm happy to be home all the time. So, um, I definitely feel that struggle personally.
Mhm.
It's hard for me to open up, but for some reason, being in video games, because you're sort of in a place that, as I mentioned before, kind of like an escapist reality, that it's a reality that you choose, and you get to be who you want in this reality. So that's why I really loved Aruna Online, which was the mobile MMORPG that I played, because you get to personalize your character, you get to talk the way you want to talk, you get to dress the way you want to dress, you get to look exactly how you picture your inner self. And I think that allows people to really open up and express themselves and meet other people that see them for who they are, because sometimes it feels like your physical reality just isn't showing what you really want to show. It's just quite not quite there. But in this virtual reality, you get to really show off who you are. And because you're showing off who you are, you're a lot more comfortable in your own skin. And I think it's easier for you to really open up to the people that you meet.
I like that. And there's a lot of psychology kind of behind that, and talking about how do we present ourselves, how do we have control over our space, how do we feel vulnerable, what areas can we create that feel like our authentic self. Because some people might say like, well, it's in a video game, so you're creating things, so it's not authentic. But I like I think you have a very valid counterpoint to say this allows us to construct in ways that we wouldn't in real life, to allow ourselves
Mhm.
to be seen and feel the way that we wish we could feel in real life sometimes.
Exactly. And on top of that, you're in a world that you can connect to a larger variety of people. The internet created that. It created the possibility for you to talk to someone thousands of thousands miles away. And while you're not connecting physically, you're connecting mentally and the way that you feel, and just the friendships that you can get in through the internet and through this virtual reality is just not something that we could have really done like 50 years ago before we had these options.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Even if we had character creation, they would have been small pixels, right? Like you get to choose from 5 skin colors and that's it. And here you get either a block of red hair or a block of black hair and a block of brown or yellow. Like that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the internet is both a scary and beautiful place, I'd say. And I think the best way that I can kind of describe that sort of greater variety in people.
Hmm.
I went to a Catholic school when I was younger,
Yeah.
and I had a graduating class of 30.
Oh, that's
So
that's small.
very small. Yes. And then I went to high school, and suddenly it's 250 people, but that's still relatively small. And then I finally went to college, and that's when, which is still a relatively small college, by the way,
Mhm.
it was thousands and thousands of people
Yeah.
graduating with me. So it was like just a huge difference. But I feel like I met more and more people I connected with as I went through high school, when there was more people through college,
Mhm.
because there's just a greater variety and a greater chance for you to really connect with people that are your people, because you're just more likely to run into them.
Yes. Yes. There's a higher chance that they exist in that population when there are more people.
Right.
let me
Exactly.
let me ask you this. I got a lot of questions now bubbling off of what you've said. How do you know when you found your people? Especially if it's first meeting online, we lack so much information, from like nonverbal facial expressions to even tone and voice, right? It's a lot harder to figure out, like, do I know someone or am I interpreting it a particular way? Because the way I read text, well, I struggle sometimes reading. You would think that maybe I have
Hmm.
dyslexia, right? Like so there's chances. How do you know when you feel like you know someone? How do you identify, like, yes, these are the roots building of a really great community. Let's grow this forest.
Absolutely. It's it's not really a tangible thing or something that you can really see right away. There's definitely vibes when you're talking to someone that you initially have, or at least I initially have.
Mhm.
I think I got a little more specific into finding what I was looking for. And the way that I can describe it best is that I actually moved to another state a couple of years ago, but with everything happening, I didn't really took the time to make new friends until this past summer. I downloaded Bumble BFF, and it was a lot of searching because I
Mhm.
wanted to find friends locally.
Yeah.
I still talk to my friends back home,
Hmm.
my college and my high school and my middle school friends, but it's not the same as having someone that you can do stuff with in person.
Yeah.
It's not what I'm used to because back home, we would have this group chat. I would just reach out and say, who wants to hang out? Or someone else would be like, who wants to hang out?
Mhm.
And it's in the middle of the week, 7 p.m. on a Wednesday, and people would just me, and
Yep.
we'd go and do it.
Yeah.
I wanted that, and I was missing that here.
Mm.
So I downloaded Bumble BFF, and I did meet a handful of people. And at first, I really wasn't sure what I was looking for.
Mhm.
But as I developed more friendships and deeper friendships and let go of some of the ones that I knew wasn't going to work out, um, I think you just have to be specific in what you're looking for,
Mm.
because I realized what I was looking for was spontaneous friends that would want to go out on a random Wednesday at
Yeah.
7 p.m. And there's just different characters out there. Like there will be people that need 2 weeks notice before you can hang out with them. There are people that just have a busy schedule, that unfortunately can't just drop anything and do something spontaneous like that. And plus, there's different jobs require different hours. So I just got specific with that. And then once I found that, then I got into deeper conversations with people. I'm really bad with small talk.
Should we
Really
practice how's
bad.
the weather? Yeah. That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. So I often get into really deep conversations really quickly. And I would often go into really deep conversations with people that kind of relate to my story or just have
Yeah.
empathy towards my story, because I'm an immigrant. I came to the United States when I was 3 years old. Um, and my parents, we moved around a lot. I also have, you know, haven't been in contact with my biological father. So there's just sort of this
Mhm.
feeling like not belonging.
Yeah.
And I feel like I often find people like that, and that kind of um, brings us together in a way, because
Mm.
that feeling of not belonging, you obviously want to belong.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that you can feel about a person when they really are looking for that connection and you're equally looking for that connection. Um, and you just can so quickly open up to someone, and you can just feel it, like I can trust this person. I think that helps me open up to people, and helps me find my people when I know that I can open up to them and I won't be judged and I won't have it used against me in any way.
Mm. Mm. That's tough to have those kind of conversations and to be able
Hmm.
to suss out, like, do you understand? Can you relate? Are you going to show empathy in these moments? Because that's hard, especially with such an important topic as wanting to belong.
Hmm.
I mean, you're right. It's something every human creates, right? Like we want to belong to groups, but part of that is also recognizing when we don't belong. And it's okay that we don't belong to
Hmm.
everyone, but it can be frustrating when we don't have our belonging group.
Yes, it is. It can be. It was definitely frustrating the first couple of months where because I had told Mike about that. I
Yeah.
downloaded Bumble BFF to find friends, and he's super supportive of it because he's even more introverted than I am. He doesn't even hang out with his own friends. um, and and he was like, totally supports that. If I want to go out, I'll have friends to do that with. So I was telling him at the beginning, like, I don't know if this friendship will work out. I feel like, because I give so much right away,
Mhm.
um, that it worries me when I don't get it back.
Yeah.
Um, but it does take time for people, like, not everyone is like me where they just open up immediately. Like,
Mhm.
sometimes it takes some time, and it takes me time to feel that out to make sure that this is a friendship that's going to last me a long time. So
Yeah.
it was difficult at first, and I had my doubts and worries, but so far,
Good.
I met a few friends
Good.
that are definitely sticking by my side.
And that's all you need, right? It's not about trying to
Mhm.
befriend everyone. That would be exhausting too. But
Mhm.
it is. It's about finding those right people. Can I pull the thread about belonging, right? So you kind
Mhm.
of talked a little bit about it, like being an immigrant, trying to find friends and your space. What feels very separated from others to you? Like how do you kind of see those things that might prevent you from feeling as connected to other groups of people? Because, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's trying to find like what are experiences to your story that you think are important that you want to find connection over?
Yeah, I would say the biggest one is not just being an immigrant, but also being the eldest daughter in an Asian family. Like that's a big thing. That's a big thing that a lot of firstborn Asian daughters really relate to. And it's it it's not just making friends with other firstborn Asian
Yeah. That's it.
daughters,
That's
but
the only qualifier. Check.
yeah, that's the only but it's just understanding that struggle. I had a really good friend that I really connected with, not because he was a firstborn Asian daughter,
Yeah.
but because his sister is the firstborn daughter, and just having empathy for that situation and really understanding what I mean when I talk about things, really helps me feel like this is my person, I belong here. And besides that, just having similar hobbies, because like I said, just bringing it back to video games, I didn't mean to do this, but
Do it.
bringing it back to video games, and how I probably never would have met Mike if he was not a gamer, because we literally met through video games. Like
Yeah.
video games being such a big part of my life is such a driver for so many of my friendships and my relationships.
Yeah.
Um, Even the friends that I look for on Bumble BFF, if it says they're a gamer, I will most likely swipe right.
Yeah.
If I see that, because we had that connection, and I know that I'll have that sort of belonging there.
Mm-hmm. Yes, even if they don't play the same game, they can still
Right.
relate as to like, yeah, here's why I'm spending the money to buy the latest PlayStation, or you know, the excitement that comes out before a video game. You're like, I got to see the trailer, or day one, you know, I'm taking a day off of work to go to play this game. They're not going to judge you for it, and that's important. Yes, yes, that's hard though.
It's
Still,
very
like,
important.
I mean, even from that, like, if we were to just say like, I'm looking for gamers, like that's at least what billion people. That'd be that demographic. It is a process, and trying to find those kind of conversations. And I'm glad you brought it back to video games, because I think a lot of us see these communities as a place for us to be able to connect. And obviously, you started building, as you mentioned, when you were younger. I am not a parent, but I would worry. Like, I think some parents might listen to this and go, I am fine with my kid making connections. I don't know if I trust them to do it unsupervised, you know, especially knowing some of the dangers that are on there. What were things that you considered as you're making these connections to do it safely?
Absolutely.
Or were you just like,
really
forget it
strict.
all, let's go?
I had really strict parents growing up. So that meant that I was a rebellious kid.
What?
And they tried their hardest to get me off of online games and not play MMORPGs and talk to people online. But strict parents raise rebellious kids, so of course I still did it.
Yeah.
And I think that as I navigated my way through it, it was definitely difficult for me to be honest, honestly stay safe as I was, because I was so rebellious and such a hard-headed kid, and I was like, I know better than my parents. So definitely, but at the same time, even though they were strict, my parents did instill like good values in me and understand when red flags go off. And I would say having really strict boundaries is super important. I don't think I really learned how much I can rely on boundaries to, progress my self-care and my own sort of mental growth until I really met Mike, my boyfriend, because he is so strong on boundaries. If he says no, it's not happening, and I understood that. And I think just having a basis of being strict on your boundaries and sticking through with your decisions and what you think is right for you will definitely help keep yourself safe. And it's definitely something that has to be taught over time.
Mhm.
I just didn't necessarily. There were some times when I was playing online that I would say like I probably shouldn't have done that. Like I probably should have removed myself from that situation.
Yeah.
But I think me wanting to be a parent in the future, it's less so being as strict as my parents were, because like I said, strict parents raise rebellious kids, but more so kind of just keeping them informed and letting them know, like teaching them from the beginning, like how important boundaries are and making sure that you stick true to what you believe in and just teach them to be good people, essentially.
Yes, yes. Good people and good to themselves, right? And protecting and
Yes.
saying, you deserve to be safe.
Absolutely. And another thing I would say that I would attribute to my parents teaching me is that they taught me to be um, good to my neighbors, essentially. I grew up
Mm,
Catholic. I'm no longer, but um, I think Catholic values do have their merit, and they taught me that if I didn't want to do, if I didn't want something done to me, not to do it to someone else.
mhm.
So that helped me just make good decisions about treating other people. And if you just put out that type of energy into the world, you'll generally get it back.
Yes, yes. That's always a good rule of thumb and a good decision in recognizing what we can and can't control. We know we can do
Hmm.
good and we hope that good comes back. But that other part we can't, like, it's not a guarantee. It's not always how it works, but it's separate. We
Hmm.
know what we can do and it's being good in that action. I like that. I I am curious. So, okay, the rebel that you are. If were there moments that you said that was a red flag and that you would share with us, because I think that's a lot of moments where plenty of us have been. I know I have trouble sleeping at night when I go, I shouldn't have handled it that way. I'm still doing that, right? And I still think about moments when I was in high school and I went, I shouldn't have handled that way, because I don't forget things and I overthink everything that I do. It's very healthy, but but what are those moments like to help people, especially if they're hopping online for the first time, like, and starting to calibrate what's considered normal or what are healthy boundaries for me to be able to say, no, that's a little bit too much. Because especially when we're accommodating individuals or when we think we have to go that extra mile to be nice, we allow
Hmm.
ourselves to have boundaries stepped over when it would have been fine for us to keep those.
Yes, absolutely. Especially when I was a kid, just sharing any pictures of myself, even if it was someone that claimed to be the same age as me, it's absolutely a red flag for anyone forcing you or just being really pushy about having you send them or making it feel like you're the weird one for not wanting to have your picture sent in a group chat or sent privately. Absolutely,
Mm.
that is a red flag,
Yeah.
and you should only do something because you want to, not because you're trying to impress someone or because someone is asking it of you. That's definitely one that if I could go back and tell my child self, don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, especially with the way that some things are created nowadays with deep fakes and all that.
Oh.
Sometimes you could just never be too careful, and especially being underage, you don't want that happening to you.
Mm. Oh, that's layered. I didn't even think of that. And even deep fakes, right? And what people create
Hmm.
out of that. It's terrifying. Ugh.
Hmm.
Now I'm thinking like, should I lock down my Instagram? But but especially yes, when you're minor. And I get like cuz when you're young and you're a rebel, you're like, I'll be safe. These are my choices. But it's an important consideration as we think about what do we share with others? What are we giving people access to, not necessarily the rights, but we give them access to information and then they feel comfortable using it however they want, which can
Hmm.
be very frightening and hard to take back once we've put that out there.
Right, exactly.
Hmm. Dang. I love that. But I think that's such an important thing because when we're first getting out there, we want to build friendships. So sometimes we're willing to go that extra mile, especially for many of us adults who are like, we've moved away from college and our friends no longer are like in the dorm next to us, right? So
Mhm.
we're willing sometimes to go an extra mile to say like, yeah, I want to make this friendship work. I want to show that I'm committed to it. And that's really difficult to find that right balance of what am I comfortable sharing and what do I still show to say that I am invested in this friendship
Mhm.
that we're creating.
Absolutely. And for the most part, if someone truly wants to be your friend, they will not overstep those uncomfortable things. They won't overstep your boundaries. They'll respect you, and they'll understand you, especially if they're asking something that you're not comfortable with. They shouldn't ask again.
Yes. Oh, what a good reminder. Yeah, they should
Mhm.
respect that. Like, thank you for letting me know. I won't ask again. Wow. Yes. Yes. That's such a good reminder. It's such a simple statement, but I think it's one of those where we hear it out loud and we're like, yeah, of course that's what a good friend would do. Um, and we don't always hear that enough. I think that's a really good push.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dang. All right. Well, we've asked, of course, what was their most productive. What game? Because I like to ask, what game did you find to be the least open to building connections?
um, Weirdly enough,
Mm-hmm.
Paladins. It's this
Okay.
online game. It's similar to Overwatch, but it's free. And I played it because my ex during college, his fraternity brothers, really
Mhm.
loved the game. And I started playing because they need another person.
Yeah.
And I just happened to have a PS4. So I jumped in and I was better than all of them. And um, I stopped playing with them because they were holding me back. um, I was not getting out of Silver League with them, so
Yeah.
so I started playing on my own, and I ended up in Diamond League. And again, I was just playing on my own, and I wanted to find other people to play with, but it was an older game, so the community I joined a Discord, they weren't really as welcoming to new players as I was looking for.
Mm.
And when I was playing on my own, I had my headset on, I was just playing, doing my thing,
Yeah.
Diamond League, and I ran into the most toxic people I have
Dang.
ever met in my, and I played Call of Duty, and these
Yeah.
these people were way more toxic. And it only happened when I got to Diamond League, which is the highest league.
Yeah.
And they were just so toxic. They hated the way that I played. They were just saying nasty things about me when I got to Diamond League playing the way that I played on my own. So it was just, I just never put my headset on ever again because
Wow.
I was like, I'm not gonna listen to anyone. I'm just gonna play the game, enjoy it, and I stopped playing ranked ever since because the game was just, it was so toxic.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. Like, if I were the people behind that game, that would break my heart to be like, we had somebody who enjoyed our game, was damn good at it, and then they couldn't stick with it because of the other people we attract to this game.
hmm Yeah, and that's definitely a balance that we struggle with too, just in the game that I'm working on.
Mm-hmm.
We just launched a Discord,
Yeah.
and I don't have as much sort of knowledge of how to run a Discord server as a mod.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm really relying on my coworkers'
Sure.
knowledge and what they know. And um, I remember what really stuck to me that my coworker said. He said that if there's toxicity, you nip it in the bud. You just have to start from the beginning. If anyone shows any toxic behavior, you just cut it off immediately.
Okay.
And that's what keeps the community clean and keeps them positive and keeps them, and essentially it fosters a community that you're looking for and one
Mm.
that isn't super toxic. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So that probably also takes a lot of good actors as well, kind of demonstrating like,
hmm
here's what good behavior looks like. Here's what role models of our community look like that we want you to emulate this behavior. Right?
hmm
Like, so you have to have some sort of champion, right? In this space.
Yeah, we just recently launched the Discord server, but
Mhm.
yeah, we would definitely keep building up those positive community members that have been playing the game for such a long time, and we've had forums, and they keep the forums alive. They keep it positive. They go ahead and flag posts that they think are just bad for the community and bad look.
Mhm.
And I truly appreciate those players, and hopefully um, in the near future, within this week, we pay it back to them by having some sort of exclusive access to the
Ooh.
dev team or something like that. We'll
Yeah.
see. We're still building it out, but you definitely want to build up those champions for sure.
Yeah, testing it out. I actually want to steal some of the language because you said like they keep it alive. It makes me think like, yeah, toxic members can kill it, but
Mhm.
it doesn't just stay alive on its own. It takes good people to invest and to act and to showcase that this is a place that people want to be, right? It's just as
Exactly.
important for it to grow to have good people than it is to cut out bad people.
Yeah, that's why it's a community. A lot of people, bringing it back to what we were talking before, just are looking that sense of belonging. And if
Yeah.
a bunch of people love a game and they play it so much and they connect with other people that are also very deeply invested in the game,
Mhm.
you foster this community about people that care about it. They care about the product, about the game.
Yes. Yes. Oh, that's
Mhm.
good. Yeah. I love that. So, you guys are working right now. Of course, you mentioned like you help make skins and other in-game features. What is it like to create something that you know is going to help a player express themselves? Because we've talked a little bit about like how games are part of our external expression, how we might visualize ourselves. You're adding to the options of it. What is it like to think like, what do we want to create? What does this look like? What are considerations that you bring into mind while bringing this work to life?
Yeah, I would say it takes a lot of research, both just internal data that we have, um, and also just looking to see what's popular. One of the bigger projects that I've been working on is a revamp to our battle pass, and that required a lot of research and looking into other games battle pass and see what they're doing, what they're selling, and the kinds of skins and stuff that they're producing. So it does take a lot of research,
Mhm.
but also just kind of tribal knowledge about the player base. So I work in live operations, and that is a lot of data analysis and looking at numbers and looking at the quantitative side.
Mhm.
But I know I always had a deep appreciation for the qualitative side.
Yeah.
Um, I would always ask community managers like, "Hey, what are the players saying about this? How do they feel about this event? What kind of feedback are you getting for them? How do you think they will react to this change if I make it?" Because there's always that qualitative part of it that's really important. So kind of bringing those things together help us develop what kind of cosmetics we'll bring into the game and what's going to drive the sort of engagement that we're looking for.
Yes. Ones that are going to be popular, that are going to be
Hmm.
used, right? Like at the end of the day, if every player kind of ignores it and it's like, well, that wasn't worth the time or the effort. I, okay, maybe it's the teacher in me, but I really love that you said we begin with research. And I was like, yes.
Hmm.
Because I think a lot of people might imagine like, well, you sit there and you create things, you put in whatever you want, or somebody from higher up just tells you. But the fact that you have to go through this process to determine, and you do market research of what everybody else is doing, you listen to the audience, you look at your audience demographics, right? You're doing a lot of different data gathering to inform those decisions. It sounds less glamorous. Do you enjoy that part of the job?
I
Or
do. I have my degree is in economics, and I've always loved the data and the research and
Mhm,
playing around with numbers, because at the end of the day, all these cosmetics, they're
mhm.
all numbers. So I like seeing how they interact with each other and how they develop as we release them in game.
Yes, yes, to see it all come to life, like here's
Hmm.
numbers lived out sort of experience.
Yep, exactly.
I think that is exciting. And I also like that you reveal, like, you ask community managers, right? What are the players saying? Because I think there are some games out there where players feel unheard or that they make requests or ideas, or sometimes players are very opinionated. Um, what is it? What are the pros and cons of being able to have more communication with the player base, whether it's via the community manager or even some players that might try to come directly to you or to the team?
I think it's important having that line of communication with the dev team because it feels more like you're talking to a person on the other side of the screen as opposed to just a scripted response of we hear what you're saying. This is what we'll do.
Yeah.
um, so having that sort of deeper connection, it builds community and it builds trust in the player base that we're listening, we're making changes from what they're saying, and their opinion matters to us. And having that, building that trust and having that connection with the dev team creates a deeper connection to the game because it makes you feel like you're a part of it.
Mm,
Because, hey, like, I asked for this and here it is in the game.
yeah.
It makes you feel good because that's you in the game.
Yeah. You're like, look, I helped make that recommendation and they went forward with it. Um,
Exactly.
yes, yes. Well, and I think it reminds us when we make these games, right, or when these games come out, that there's a whole ecosystem that continues to feed into it. Like the more we play it, that encourages and supports that these are the types of games that we like. When we give feedback and say we'd love to see this, that helps informs and hopefully creates more of what that is. The way we engage in this space is important. Now, I think I know the answer to this, but I want to set it up because I want to hear from you. What are the good and positive ways people can interact with a dev team? And what are some no nos of saying, please don't talk to us like that? We're human beings.
Oh yeah, tons. So one thing about player communications is that you will more likely hear about a bug than you will hear thank you about anything. Um,
Oh,
100%. It's usually because, I mean, it's the same thing with restaurant reviews. Most
yeah.
people are more likely to write a bad review about a restaurant they didn't enjoy as opposed to talking positively about a restaurant that they did enjoy. Because players come, they enjoy what they do, they enjoy what's
Mhm.
happening, and they're not going to complain unless something buggy pops up. Um, but I would say the good parts are definitely I make in-game events,
Mhm.
so getting the feedback of players of when I iterate something over and over to try to get the perfect mix of hitting the metrics that we need internally and also getting a positive response from the player base, it always makes me smile when we do get something positive
Yeah.
from the player base. Feedback is always welcome because nothing is perfect. Even just the gaming industry, it's so young, it's still evolving, so we're still learning, we're constantly growing, and any feedback is always good. I would say what is negative is if any player just straight up starts insulting the team or each other because we're trying to drive community. We're not trying to insult anyone. Like,
Mhm.
just because a change happens in a patch that you don't like, there's still a reason behind it. It's not just to make your life miserable. There's, uh,
I feel like you all
it's
should say like this one's for you, Ted. Like just start calling out
yes.
random names for these.
No, it's so funny. Sometimes my coworkers and I would joke that we'll just because our player base will sometimes they'll data mine
Oh
after
god.
an update and they'll just pick it apart. And we would joke that we'll put something completely random that will never happen in game in there and see if anyone finds it and just see them question their reality. um, it's always fun like that. But yeah, just as long as you you stay a good person, you just have positive communication with other people because you're just not getting anywhere by
Mhm.
insulting someone.
Yeah. Yes.
What gain will you have? Because we're just going to ignore it on our side. It might be hurtful if I read it because I'm soft,
Yeah.
but um, what are you gaining as a person for insulting someone else?
Mm. Yes. Yes. I mean, I won't lie. I'd be tempted to say, even if their suggestion was good, if they were a jerk about it, I'd be like, I'm putting it on the bottom of my list now.
Right.
I'll do it because it was good, but you were mean, so I'm going to make you wait a little bit longer than if you were
Right.
nice.
Just be spiteful.
Yeah. I'm like, I will do it because I recognize the merit of the idea, but it's the least you can do. And I think it's interesting because, of course, there's comms open, right? Sometimes they can reach out directly, or they speak through the community manager or through the Discord, right? Or other platforms that you make available to have those conversations. But the biggest conversation back, right? They send it however they want, via Discord, email, whatever, in which players share their thoughts out, heck, even tweeting it. But for game devs, sure, you might respond back and say, like, we hear you, here's what we're working. The biggest response you create is back in game. Everything that you create in the game is a message to the players that you want to create something that's cool for them, or we hear you about this bug and we adjusted it, or we knew you wanted these weapons to be more at play, or this character or this champion or whatever it is, and we hear you and you can see it now. It's such an interesting way, and even a delayed way, because that takes a long time to create. It's not like, oh yeah, that's a fix we can fix in a day. I've never heard
Right.
anyone say that. So, but you have such an important means to be able to let people know that they've been heard. And that's got to be so powerful to be able to deliver that and say, you came up with an idea and now it's in game, or you helped us solve this bug and now the game experience is better because of it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's part of what I was saying about how you'll not often hear a thank you, but you will see it in the numbers, in the metrics when you see that players are engaging with this new feature or they're unlocking this exclusive cosmetic. And in a way, I take that as a thank you, as like, oh wow, I did want this.
Yeah.
And they're happy that it's in game now and they're able to acquire it.
Them using it. That's very kind of you. Yeah, Scripps is very, like, game devs give so much hate. Like, anytime that we can give you positives, it's such a good idea. Right now I'm thinking about, like, all my favorite games and how I've never sent them a note thanking them for it, and I feel like I have a new goal this week. Uh,
They'll appreciate it.
yes, but it's such a good idea. Even if it's something short, I'm sure it's nice that somebody took a pause to say, I want to send this team a note to let them know what they created was something that I loved.
Yeah, it's definitely powerful.
Hmm.
Even if it's not in an interaction between a game dev, even if it's just your friend or your family member, and they just do something that they've always done for you,
Hmm.
to just stop and say, "Thank you, I appreciate you." It's very powerful.
Yes. Oh, I like that. Yeah, that's a good reminder. The second thing is, when people are sending you suggestions, right? Fixes, bugs, whatever they come across, complaints, are there details that make it easier? Like, is it like, do you need screenshots? Is it like, make this as detailed as possible? Like, what actually helps if we say, like, I'm experiencing a bug? What information do you need that actually makes it actionable for you, versus people just like, I hear you have a problem, but I can't quite get enough information about it.
Absolutely. There's multiple ways to go about it.
Yeah.
It depends on the severity of the bug and if it actually is a bug or something that genuinely breaks the game that can't be fixed with simple bug fixing. For the most part, we always tell players to submit a ticket because that gives us a lot of information. It gives us exactly how you're experiencing it. Maybe we can recreate the scenario. Repro is so important in bug fixing. Um, Other than that, I think as a game dev, having a good knowledge of the game itself and understanding when players discuss things in the games, it actually connects to what your knowledge is of the game. Because our game it's a 6-year-old game, which is old in its way, so it's very complicated.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of tribal knowledge. So sometimes when I read stuff, I it just doesn't click for me. So I would have to ask a designer
Yeah.
to be like, what do they mean by this? And um, they're able to figure out what they're talking about just because they have such a strong knowledge of the game. And just knowing the game, playing the game as much as other players do is such a strong tool
Mhm.
in fixing these bugs and getting to what the players are struggling about.
Yes. Like trying to translate, like, I hear you. What is it that
Hmm.
you're saying? And so being able to interpret, like, okay, that's the game knowledge or the game experience that they're referencing, then you can act upon it. And so at least you have also
Hmm.
other team members, because I imagine a game 6 years old has a lot of
Hmm.
information then, right? Like of what you've gone through, of iterations of it, what's been available in the past, what's available now. Like that's not something you can fit into a single PowerPoint, I imagine.
No, absolutely not. I'm still learning, and I've been here 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think sometimes players forget that, like, and again, there's a difference of being on the player side versus, of course, on your side as the dev team, and the additional knowledge of all of it, of not just here's what we did, but here's how it worked, here's why we did it, the reasonings. Like, so that becomes tenfold in the amount of knowledge that would be useful to you as a dev to be able to understand what the players are talking about, because the players just see it from their experience as being a player. So even if like
Hmm.
we were to talk about a game like Call of Duty that's been around for what feels like all of our lives, right? Like there's so much history there that even if you were just a player, one, that's hard enough to remember. But then to think about it on the dev team side, to flip it of saying like, here's what we do, here's why we do it, here's all of these assets and variables and weapons, like that's enough to fill the Library of Alexandria, I imagine. I don't, that's a lot to have to keep in mind.
It is a lot. Every once in a while, there is a broken game mode, and we have to figure out what's broken with it, and then we find a new sheet. And our backend dev would ask me, "Hey, did you know this sheet existed?" And I would say, "No, I did not know this sheet existed, but now I do." And it's just, again, with the research, it's a lot of
Yeah.
digging back, looking at the last person who edited this, who can I ask to figure out more information.
Mhm.
So, in a way, the job is also kind of like a game where you're just constantly digging for clues and trying to figure out what is happening.
Sounds like a game within a game. Like,
Yes.
we have a mystery. Let's figure this out. I love it. I love it. Well, we're going to take our first 5 minute break because I think this is a good stopping point. But I love where we've been talking about these relationships that we've kind of been going through all of these different, like from the friendships, your current partner, to the players that you have. And I want to talk more as we come back more about building a team, right? What does that look like to collaborate with others and to exist in this space, especially now you also mentor in the space as well, right? So there's additional, like, as we branch out, there's so much in this world of gaming and the relationships we build as we try to create meaning for ourselves and for others, belonging. So I can't wait to dig in more with you about this. Mari, you've been amazing so far. Please don't go anywhere. We'll just be back in 5 minutes. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, friends,
See you in
five
a bit.
minutes. Yes. We'll see you all in a hot minute. Okay, friends, we are back with the second half of our Pink Pixels interview with Mari. We've been diving in to building relationships here in the gaming space, and yours have been diverse to say the least. You have connected with so many people. How important is that to you, especially considering this is your job, right? So you are a game developer. Building those relationships, how integral was that to finding yourself where you are today?
Yeah, it's super, super important. I think community is one of the greater driving forces to video games because without community, I don't think that video games would ever really get to where it is now.
Mm.
Even if you're not playing a multiplayer game, even if you're just playing a single player game, you still have that community of people that all love the game that's driving this game to be successful. They're purchasing the game or they're purchasing things in the game. So there's a strong sense of community in everything, essentially. So,
Yeah. Yes, yes. Connecting with people. I assume being likable helps out quite a bit because you're very easygoing. You're very fun to be around. I imagine a lot of people go, "You're somebody I want to hang out with."
thank you. That is a wonderful compliment. I I think that a lot of people are that way, are super friendly. I do get a lot of people say that I am super friendly, which I look at them and I'm like, what? um,
Lies.
I think that it really comes from just the way that I've grown mentally and the way that I've kind of discovered myself and understood things about myself. Like, I am this person, I'm Mari, this is what I like, this is how I present myself. And I think having that confidence draws people in. And I just have that honesty about myself. Like, this is who I am. And if you have that honesty, it's really easy to weed out the people that dislike you for who you are and the people that genuinely like you for who you're authentically being.
Ooh, I feel like that takes some reflection though, right? Like there's the idea of like, yeah, I work like this, but taking a moment like, no, this is really how I am.
Yes, absolutely. I remember growing up that I had to explain to people that I was brutally honest. I as I've grown older and have a better understanding of myself, I don't necessarily think it's brutal honesty. I more so think it's that I have this acceptance of people will like me. If they don't like me, then they won't. There's nothing I can do about that. And just having that sort of acceptance again, just it draws the right people in.
That's true, right? Like it's the opt-in process. Like I'll show you who I am, and if you want to work with me from this, then we can move forward. But then you don't have to keep up like this game of charade the whole time to say like
Hmm.
I'm this perfectly amicable person and I will be whoever you want me to be because that's exhausting
Hmm.
to try
It
to
is.
adapt to others. Like it's not fun. You're constantly changing for every single person then that you meet. And I feel like that's also puts you in perhaps ethical traps. Like you are a good person depending on who you're interacting with.
Exactly. Yeah, just being your authentic self, it just helps you find your community. And
Yeah.
it also just cuts the corner of, like I said, for me, it was, I originally didn't know what I was looking for when I was looking for friends
Yeah.
when I moved. But as I met more people and I had a better understanding of what exactly I was looking for,
Mm-hmm.
it really drove in that sort of like, again, just going back to boundaries, like, I want people that respect my boundaries. I want people in my life that respect me and want me to be happy genuinely, and not people that are just looking for something, just want something from me. I think it's really important to cut those people out of your life for your own health and also just the health of your other friendships because
Mm.
it's draining. It's draining.
It is. It is. I think you kind of hit on something that I think a lot of people misunderstand networking to be. Like they think of it as like Who's going to help me climb the ladder? Who's going to help me get to the job I really want? And that's not a healthy way to approach networking. Like, who can I
Mm-hmm.
use? And it should really be like, who can I connect that I want to work alongside? Who can I help in lifting them up? Because oftentimes when we lift up the work of others and we give it, like, that's our chance to showcase what
Yes.
we're capable of as well.
Exactly. That's a big thing. Especially being not just a game dev, but like a woman game dev.
Mm,
We are super underrepresented in the industry, and just supporting other women and building them up is so important, not just in their growth, but in your own personal growth.
yes, yes. What is it at right now? Like 23 or 26% of
Yes,
game
it's
devs are
somewhere
women?
around there.
Yeah, it's not
Mhm.
a lot.
No, it's definitely a far cry from the past, though. It used to be closer to 9%, but I'm part of this organization called Women in Games, and
Mhm.
it's all about uplifting underrepresented gender minorities in the game industry. And since it was founded in, I think, 2003,
Mhm.
a few years ago,
Yeah.
it has now grown to 23, 26%, which is, it's
Yes.
not quite there, but it's getting there.
Yes, yes, but it's concerted efforts and it's a part of groups. And I think sometimes people getting into the gaming industry think like, oh, I'm not there yet, or I'm still young in my career, I can't be a part of it. But joining these organizations right from the beginning, or even before perhaps you even get hired, I think gives a lot
Mhm.
more awareness and support. I think if anyone, right, you would recommend if somebody was looking at getting in the gaming space, you'd like, yeah, maybe you should look at women in gaming. Maybe you should look at these wonderful organizations that provide support and voice and guidance in navigating these spaces.
Yeah, that's 100% it. Just seeing a familiar face
Mm,
is a huge thing.
yeah.
My cousin, she recently started college the past semester,
Yeah.
and she was going in for computer science in a very, which is in general a male dominated field,
Yeah.
and she was also going to a male dominated college. And I really felt for her because she ended up dropping out
Oh,
because of how isolated she felt, being the
yeah.
only woman in all her classes, in the hallways, and just everywhere, not seeing someone um, look like you, or just someone that can connect with you. Just, it definitely makes a huge difference, and it gives you
Yeah.
this feeling of hopelessness that can only really be remedied by having that strong community and having that support system to keep you going.
I cannot imagine what it would be like, not even just to be in class, but to even go out in the hallways in between where
Mhm.
there are multiple classes and to see not a single other woman there.
Yes.
I don't me
It's
if
really
I were
hard.
like the director of that department, I'd be like, there is a problem. We are doing something wrong that no one they're not staying. I don't know. Like and I don't blame her because like who wants to be the one martyr who has to push through this very isolating experience. College is hard enough, much less being isolated on that. Like,
Yes.
good grief. Good grief.
Yes. It's definitely really tough. I recently connected with a bunch of other women game devs in the area, and I had a really great conversation with one of them. And we were just talking about our experiences and the different jobs that we've had, not just in gaming, but also in tech.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember truly feeling for her, because she honestly told me that a part of her just wants to give up. Because there's also a lot of layoffs going on in game industry, and she was expressing how she kind of felt like just giving up, because it's so hard constantly fighting, but at the same time she doesn't want to give up, because if she gives up, that's one less person, like, in for the fight, essentially. And we need all the people that we need to keep moving the scales, because staying and going the numbers means, going through these struggles and seeing the difficulties, so in the future we can see the numbers scale up.
Wow. What a what a unique experience for women in the gaming space to think we can't quit yet because we want to provide hope for others.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are other people out there. It's just for them. What do they want to do? They don't have to think about how they represent or have to be part of that inspiration to others.
Right. Yeah, that when she said that was truly so moving.
Yeah, that's a huge burden. But I get it, right? Because you want to be the one who helps open doors, not the one who looked at that door and said, I can't go through another one. This is too difficult. That's a hard story.
Yes, I mean, either direction is, I would consider them super strong women, one for just
Yes.
being there in the first place, but
Yes.
whichever direction you go, that's something to be proud of.
Yes. You're right. I'm glad you mentioned that because it's either option is not wrong. It's their
Hmm.
choice. It's whatever's right for them. But it's so weird that there are external variables that weigh in that might make you think beyond just what do you want and what's good and healthy for you.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's definitely a struggle that is constant. Just being a woman in general
Yeah.
in this world.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and yeah, we're trying to drive up that from 9% to 26%, which is a huge jump. That's exciting.
Yes.
It's very exciting. There is good room to be celebrating. And it hopefully then motivates us to say, keep going, especially when there are just whole college departments now that still only exist.
And the crazy thing is, coding and programming used to be a women's job back in the 40s. But then all the introverted men were like, I want that job. It's actually pretty sick.
It
So
is. It's a great,
it is.
it's cool. It's a cool job. What an interesting turn of history and evolution of this and the process of reclaiming a right to be in a position, which seems so weird, like this
Hmm.
unspoken war. And it feels like, well, one, I feel like it's only us seeing that, like we have to fight for it. The other's like, we're just here. um Maybe war isn't the right thing because only one of us is really trying.
It is just such an interesting turn of history, you're right.
Yeah.
I remember watching this video essay about girls' games
Hmm.
and kind of the development of it. So just starting off with women in the 40s being programmers, being coders, they were the ones that held that job because it was a women's job, and then eventually turning into a man's job.
Yeah.
And looking at the history of games and how computers were marketed as a boys' toy, they were marketed for boys. So all the games that actually got the funding and the attention were games for boys. All of the games for girls, they were lower quality. They were still good, but they're just not as remembered as all the other games that
Hmm.
were essentially made for boys.
Yeah.
Even um, Barbie game back in I think either 2001 or 2002. It was the highest grossing, one of the highest grossing games of that year.
Hmm.
But if you look at all of the top games from that year, it's not listed there because who's going to imagine Barbie as, such a successful game? And it's interesting that we've kind of also developed that, like a lot of things that are considered girly things in games such as dress up and customizations. That's
Hmm.
things that all genders, all people are interested in.
Yeah.
Like who doesn't spend an hour making their Skyrim character through in every playthrough?
Yes. Yes.
That's originally considered historically a girls game
Yes.
type of feature. But it's an interesting thing because
Hmm.
people always say, and it relates to games too, that something that uplifts an underrepresented group can help uplift all of society. But we just don't look into it because we don't consider women, we
Yeah.
don't consider girls.
Yeah. Yeah. Or what we think girls and women want. I love
Hmm.
that you bring up the dress because like in Destiny, my favorite game, Destiny is a key part of it. People spin forever.
Yes.
They'll take pictures. There's a whole, almost every Discord that's about Destiny has a Destiny channel where people can post
Hmm.
pictures of how good their guardian looks, right? And I love that you mentioned Skyrim. I remember there was a TikTok trend of this woman and she was talking about girly games and she's like, Skyrim's a girly game. Look at these outfits. I spent hours building my smithing skills so I could get this glamorous Daedric armor, right? But this, you're right. It's how we kind of code or categorize
Mm-hmm.
certain game behaviors as belonging to men or women. And you're right, like everybody loves dressing up their character. It's not
Mm-hmm.
it's not just women.
Exactly. And women make up 49% of gamers
Hmm.
worldwide.
Yes.
So why don't we have more games for women?
Yes. You know.
It's because we don't think about
Yeah.
it.
Yes. I mean, I think it's funny you also mentioned Barbie, right? The Barbie game not being mentioned. I'm like, to be honest, I didn't know it existed until like the Barbie movie came out and I was interested more of Barbie and pop culture. To not even find Barbie enlisted of one of those most successful games of its year on
Mm-hmm.
that list is shocking. And again, of course, like even the Barbie movie didn't get some awards that it probably it's
Nope.
happening again. Because there's a difference of what we see as counting as art, as counting as a game, as counting as specifically a video game, and what we feel is legitimate or challenging or appropriate to be valued.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And the crazy thing is, like I said, it's if we do consider women more other underrepresented gender minorities, we actually build up things for the whole
Yes.
community because people love customizations.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big part of what is driving, like I was talking about, like ideas for Battle Pass. A lot of Battle Passes are super successful because they have exclusive cosmetics that you can't get anywhere else.
Mm-hmm. Yes. You look at that and you go, that's what I want. That reflects me.
Hmm.
That's an expression of myself. People love that. I
Exactly.
I mean I have been gifted emotes and things that have dogs because people know if it's a dog, that's my identity. I am a I'm a dog parent. Unhealthily so. Maybe healthy so compared to other dog parents. But but those are things like it resonates with me. These are ways in which we get to express ourselves. It's yes. And the more we bring up more ways for people to express themselves, it allows us to feel more comfortable trying and seeing what we feel comfortable with, right? There's been plenty of individuals in games where, again, as we mentioned, like their identity feels more aligned with them. But we've even heard stories of like queer individuals, like getting the chance to
Mhm.
explore themselves in a space that feels safest to them to express themselves when being in real life could be dangerous at that time.
Yes, absolutely. Um, yeah, that definitely relates to what we were talking about how fostering community in online games can help you really express yourself more because not only can you really show who you truly are inside more accurately sometimes through video games, but it is definitely a safer space. You have that safety of, I know people use it like the other way as like as like, oh, you're only saying this because you're safe behind a screen, but yeah, people are safe behind a screen. They can be themselves
Yeah.
behind a screen because
Mhm.
no one is going to go out there and hurt you for not fitting what they imagine society should look like.
Yes. Yes. Oh yeah. That's safety. You're right to call out the double-edged sword where sometimes people feel safe to be hateful,
Hmm.
but that doesn't mean we get rid of that because it's a safe haven for so many people to explore, to talk for the first time. Now, with skins, right, or any of these cosmetics or any of these features, right, it's not just for the players because this is also the people behind the game, the studio itself, and all who work with it about their expression, right? Even of a game to choose to do, let's say, skins that reflect Pride Month, and
Hmm.
there are plenty of comments that we've seen in chats on Facebook or elsewhere where people might say, "Oh, it's a woke culture," right? Or they're just doing it for money. Or, but, but I imagine for some studios, especially some people there, that it's genuine. That there's value in saying, "I'm happy we get to make, emotes like this or skins like this that allow and appreciate a company's expression of valuing diversity, of letting people know that this place, this game is a safe space for them."
Yes, absolutely. It is kind of a little bit of a beacon to show that we support diversity and we support all different types of expression, be it gender or physical.
Mhm.
And one of the newest heroes, so the game that I am a product owner for is called Disney Heroes Battle Mode, which is a squad RPG hero collector, and you collect Disney characters. Um,
I
and
have a lot of friends obsessed with it. So yes.
oh, okay. That's awesome.
Yeah.
um, One of the most recent characters that we're releasing tomorrow actually is a character from the Owl House. Her name is Luz Noceda,
Hmm.
and she has a lot of representation
Yeah.
in her background. Like she's a person of color, she's queer, and she's female. So it's just having all those different forms of expression, and a lot of people see themselves in different characters that they watch on media.
Hmm.
Like I grew up totally in love with Belle because I read so many books, and I connected to her that way. And the moment that I started playing the game, I immediately started upgrading Belle and unlocking characters. And in not just in the game that in Disney Heroes, I do this in almost any game that I play. I always want to play as a woman. And if I'm playing a squad RPG, my entire squad will be women. I started playing this new game called Marvel Strike Force,
Hmm.
my entire lineup women, because I just like seeing representation and seeing that power and seeing myself in that power, and thinking like I could do that. I could be as successful and as powerful and as strong as these women in the games that I'm playing.
Yes. There's something about that where you go like it helps to connect just a little bit more. Just a
Hmm.
little bit more. Don't get me wrong, Mario is very cool, and I also think I rock a pair of overalls really nicely. But when we start to see the choices to be made and seeing plenty of others being able to hop in that space and succeed, it's no longer
Hmm.
just one narrative, but it says that this narrative could belong to any of you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm.
And I love having the option to be a woman in video games because it makes me
Yeah.
feel a lot more connected to the game, and again, like just express myself more
Hmm.
in this world that I've fallen in love with.
Yes. I think that's also the challenge. Like, as we go into these more diverse representations, is thinking about what ways do we choose to show diversity? In which characters do we provide it? And what features do we offer first? Maybe because I'm old, I remember when customization was first starting to come out. And it was like it was very simple. Like either you chose to be a man or a woman. Like that was one of the very first. Like you only get two
Hmm.
options. Like there are defaults, and of course they were both typically Caucasian, either a Caucasian man or Caucasian woman. And but that was one of the very first customization choices, just being able to choose. And then of course it built from that. Like, well, now, yes, not only can you be a woman, but you can choose from three hair color choices. Redhead wasn't even always a standard, right? Like, but it's a choice. Like then when we started to see more racial features, which races, what colors, what skin tones were chosen to first
Hmm.
be represented. I won't like I'm mixed, so finding someone who looked like me was sometimes harder because I don't feel like I look like full-blooded Chinese because I'm not, and I also don't feel like I look Caucasian because I'm not full. So it's there's this struggle point that as more diversity came out, like we often sometimes see black gamers talk about like the hairstyles and the critiques of how
Hmm.
they're shown, or even in lighting in games. Like, so for you, when you think about bringing these to life, as you go through your research, right, and even your own decisions, how do you decide and help weigh in? Because I know you're not like the sole decider, right? Like there's a team, there's more than just you, but how do you bring that responsibility of whose stories are getting told through the games you create?
Yeah, yeah, like you said, it's a huge research process, and a team sort of goal, and it starts with getting player suggestions and getting player buy-in because the players, they're the biggest community that are playing with these characters, and they're the ones that use the characters in games. So having their thoughts in is also super important. So it definitely starts with them. So we we generally poll the players. We ask them what are some franchises you want to see, what are specific heroes you want to see, and even if we don't necessarily acknowledge all of them because there's so many Disney characters,
Yeah.
we'll never be able to get to all of them. But we pay attention. We're always paying attention to see what players are talking about the most, and then we cross-reference that with our own team. Like, who do we want to see in game? Because it's also, like you said, expression of ourselves in the game as well. So it's super important that we get those two linked together, see where the overlap is, and then the creative process goes from there. And then we also get approval from Disney Incorporated, but that's another thing.
Yeah, that's another level we can't control. They're
Yeah.
doing their own thing. No, that's fair. That's fair. I'm glad you also talk about like, and then the creative process kicks off, because what you do as a whole, even the research of it, because I think sometimes when we think of numbers, we think like, well, it's very straightforward. But what you do in this decision process and bringing them to life, it is an art form.
Mm-hmm.
How would you describe your art, right? As you work to bring these things to life, from the data to the conversations to the actual production and seeing players interact with the features that you've created, how would you define your own work?
That's a really good question.
Thank you. I'll be here all
Um,
week. I'm just sorry.
I would define my artwork. It's a whole different language, I'd say, compared to what we imagine is regular, like art, like drawings and music and acting. It's definitely more so kind of, uh, what do you call the people that do this stuff in an orchestra?
Conductor.
Yes, it's like a conductor, I would say, where you're bringing all these pieces together and you're pulling them into a harmony that makes sense coming together with all the things that you're researching and pulling and analyzing and, asking about.
How they pulled in. I love that verb harmonizing, right? That you bring it all together, you make it work. You choose what pieces, and it's not even just what pieces, but how loud is one piece? How
Mhm.
softer do we make another? That takes a lot of nuance as you read each of these parts. How long has it taken for you to feel like you're good at your job? Right? Like as somebody who always still feels like an imposter, I'm trying to gauge what this looks like, right? Like, and I think a lot of people begin like, how much do I need to know? How confident should I be when I'm first applying for my job or joining a new company?
Yeah, so what I learned early on from my own studio leadership is that we never get rid of that imposter syndrome. We're always gonna feel like
Dang it.
we're not good enough and we're not getting there,
Yeah.
but it's not necessarily a bad thing because constant growth means that you can grow, that there is an upwards trajectory, and you get that satisfaction of when you reach a goal. Like, I fought to get there. I ran up the hill and I got there. And even if you get there and there's another hill, that's fine because growth can it can't be a bad thing.
Yeah.
You're always going up. So having that imposter syndrome, I learned early on was something that I should accept about myself and improve upon it. And of course, you do have to harmonize and not think too much about perfection.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you kind of find that balance where it's like, I still have things to learn,
Mm-hmm.
but what I produced is successful.
Wow. I like that. I'm stealing that from you. That's amazing. Because so often when we hear of imposter syndrome, we just think this is a bad thing, ignore it, it'll go away. But I love this idea of like, I'm going to own it. I'm going to turn this negative thing and I'm going to make it work for me, which feels one, a little bit easier because I've not yet beaten it, right? So at this point, I love the idea of saying, well, now you're on my team, right? I look at my little
Hmm.
imposter syndrome character that I've now built in my head. I'm like, I'm picking you. You're going to be my greatest strength now to make sure that I stay at the top of my game, that I push myself. What a flip of the script that takes. I love it. But it's such a big perspective change where so many
Hmm.
dialogues have been about how do you fight? How do you combat against it? And to say, like, make it work for you.
Exactly. We're all human.
Yes. I mean, suddenly now it feels less intimidating. Like, yeah, that's my imposter syndrome. Like, it's my new buddy. Like, now I feel like it's not as big of a deal now that it's on my team. I don't, maybe that diminishes the power, but what a unique perspective. I'm so glad you shared that. I don't, you just changed my life. My week is going to be different now.
I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad. I have really great mentors just within
Yeah.
my own like coworkers and my studio leadership. They've
Mhm.
definitely helped shape me into the professional that I am now, and just personally how I see the world, and just being a constant learner and a constant grower.
Yes. Yes. Dang. What a powerful thought to really boost yourself. I think that's so amazing. Now, I mean, in talking on your mentorships, like you've had people mentor you, but you are also a mentor. What is that like, and when did you know that you were ready to kind of sign up to be in that role?
I As I mentioned, I recently connected with a bunch of local game devs that are
Mhm.
also identifying as women or underrepresented minorities in my local area.
Mhm.
And as I was getting to know them and meeting other mentors, it really sparked an interest in me to want to make a difference, and also seeing the numbers in women in games and
Yeah.
thinking, I want to be a part of that change. And then the final nail in the coffin was my cousin talking about her experience about dropping out and being isolated, and thinking, like, if because I moved away, I don't really have as strong of a presence in her life, unfortunately. But um, hearing that story, and someone so personal to me to give up um, early in their life, again, like, super proud for her for realizing her own boundaries.
Mhm.
Um, but it made me want to try harder to help prevent that, and to help foster that sort of courage to jump into the tech industry, into the game industry myself. So I was on in Women in Tech Reddit.
Mhm.
I ran into a post asking, talking about just helping encourage somebody, and someone had posted about this mentorship program, and I reached out to them. It was Sama,
Yeah.
who runs the mentorship program that I'm a part of,
Mhm.
Habibi Code. And we got in a one-on-one, in a phone call. We chatted. We both loved each other's stories.
Mhm.
She is doing this completely of her own volunteer time, has her own full-time job, but she's running the whole program personally, matching people on her own time, which is incredible. So I was just like, yes, sign me up. I wanna start mentorship, and I wanna do my part
Mm.
in seeing those numbers grow. I wanna see that 26% go to 30, and then 35, and then 50, and then,
Mhm.
yeah, I wanna get that closer to
I
50%.
Yes, I love that. I love that you see this and say, I want to be a part of it. It's not just talking about it, but you're like, let me get in on this action and start lifting people up. I think
Mhm.
that's amazing. Oh, has it what has your experience been now that you've been a part of this mentorship program where you've had conversations, right? And you're listed on the website, right? Your official capacity. What has your experience been like? Because I think some people think of mentorships like, well, it's one more thing I got to do. It's one more time
Mhm.
where I've got to dedicate more time to, even if I really care about the cause, is it worth it?
Mhm. I actually start my first pairing later in February, so
Mm.
I'm really excited.
Perfect.
But what really drew me to this particular program was that it wasn't just aimed towards girls or college age students. It was for anyone, any minority in any part of their life, because we're constantly changing, we're constantly growing. And sometimes you can reach a later part of your life and you realize this isn't for me. I'm ready to step out of my comfort zone, and I'm ready to enter an industry that I never imagined myself in. And that really resonated with me as I had a conversation a couple of months ago with the founder of Girls Make Games.
Mm-hmm.
And we just had a great conversation about how sometimes our journey isn't necessarily straightforward. And if you think about it, like, who allowed us at 18 to pick a major, take out thousands and
We're gonna
thousands
be
of
good.
dollars in loans, and just be like, yeah, I'll be good?
Yeah.
Like, who let us do that?
Yeah.
Um,
Love all our
we
18-year-old decisions. We made great choices then.
absolutely. Yeah. So just knowing that the journey's never over.
Yes.
Like, again, we're constantly growing, we're constantly the driver of our own destiny. That was the greatest thing that I drew from that conversation, that I didn't come from a game design background. I went to college for economics, and then my first job was in marketing, and then suddenly I was in games because I took the leap.
Yeah.
There's so many people that share that story, and I want to keep fostering that and keep encouraging people to let them know that it's not over. It's never over. You can start your journey whenever. And in games, playing games turns us into people that are hopeful. We see hope because of games. Because what happens when you play a game and you die? You start over.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like that. Like, you make a decision, it doesn't work out for you. It's not the end of the world. You start over, you grow again, and you keep building. And that's what I want people to understand, that at any point in your life, you can make that change. You can keep being happy. You can make yourself happier. You can improve on yourself and keep going that uphill route. It's never the end.
Yes, it's never the end. And you get to choose. I'm going to extend that even more, especially for games like Skyrim. I think is a good fit, that you get to decide what your main quest is. Sure, it might say like these are main, but you get to prioritize what you care about and what you want to pursue. It's your open world. You get to decide how you spend your time, what you want to invest in. If you want to go 100 in smithing, you can, right? Like, but that's the key, like that ownership that we have. I think gaming, you're right, can help teach us some very important life lessons.
Exactly.
And that's why we love video games.
Exactly. And also marrying a high elf.
Yeah, that, there's a lot of good perks with that. Wait, do you play high elves too, or are you preferable to something else?
I'm a wood elf type of girly. I love Lord of the Rings and the classic wood elf crush.
Yeah.
I have a Cinderin tattoo, so
okay. What's it say?
Wood elf vibes. It says forever, essentially. It means like always or forever, no straight translation because Tolkien.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's actually in remembrance of my best friend who unfortunately passed away before she turned 16. And Lord of the Rings was one of the many things that we absolutely love. She gave me the Even Star as a necklace gift one of my birthdays. Yeah. So in memory of her, I got, because I'll always remember her.
That's such a beautiful tribute.
Thank you.
I think it's very thoughtful, and what a beautiful and lovely way to honor your friend, and
Absolutely.
through the celebration of the shared nerdom.
Exactly.
plus the elven language is beautiful already. It looks beautiful written.
It is.
But yes, Yes, I love that. It makes me think of how many people, because again, sometimes to outsiders who don't want to pretend they're gamers, even though they are, um, right, might look at these things as silly or one-off things, but for so many of us, they hold deep meaning. They're representations of points and stories and experiences that we've shared together. You know, we didn't, um, you know, answer Rohan's call, but it feels like we did. Right? We feel like we've done it together. We didn't defeat
Mhm.
this raid boss technically in real life, but we did at the same time, right? Um,
Right.
there are these are very valued and shared experiences, and whatever nerd world we live in, Lord of the Rings, uh, any video game you can mention, Skyrim, I forgot every game that came to my head right now because I just decided to blank. Mass Effect, it doesn't matter, or even TV show or book turn video game TV show of Witcher or whatever you want to call it. These are all stories that are very real to us that have shaped how we see ourselves and who we connect with. Thank you for sharing that. You didn't have to, and that's very vulnerable, and I appreciate it. But it's such a beautiful depiction of how we remember and honor people who have come into our lives.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You've been such a beacon of light towards such and hopeful take of how we see video games, of how we see communities. Because I think in gaming spaces, we're always very aware of the toxicity. We're very aware of the dangers. And you've painted a very hopeful and inviting space that helps us see the potential for even better spaces. I'm very glad to see you in a mentorship position. Whoever you're paired with in February is lucky, and if you want me to tell them that to their face, I will. But I think this is such an important take because gaming is, especially right now, feels very vulnerable in its evolution. Right? Even seeing like the scarcity of like how some people are letting go of their jobs, or as
Hmm.
esports feels like it's on this merge of potentially becoming bigger or flopping. Right? It, it's a very tumultuous position right now, and to have someone like you in this space who is so grounded in helping people be people, being the best versions of themselves, being who they want to be in this space, I think is really going to help our industry become the best that it could be.
Thank you. That's definitely the goal. I definitely want to see people feel more comfortable in their own skin and be authentically who they are and not feel like they have to hide anything or be scared about showing anyone who they truly are.
I think we're well on our way with people like you and Leslie. So thank you. You're a wonderful individual. You've shared so many kind thoughts and wisdom. I'm still blown by the imposter syndrome take. My brain's still reeling from it. But you've shared so many great nuggets, and I hate that we're just about out of time because I could talk to you more about anything and everything, right? I feel like we barely scratched the surface of your actual job and what you do, or the video games that you play for fun outside of it, right? Like we're not even getting into all of that. So I appreciate your patience with me as if we kind of wandered into such fascinating discussions. I just didn't want to leave those pools to hop into different ones at this time. So I hope we get to have you back sometime. Keep
Thank
perhaps.
you. You're so awesome.
Well,
It was really awesome chatting with you.
where can people find you though? Let's say, right, we want more of Mari in our lives. You're an amazing human being. We want this inspiration. Where can we follow more of what you do? Maybe your work, Discords that we can join. Feel free to plug any organization, entirely up to you, but give us anything. Anything you'll give us, we'll take.
Absolutely. Yeah. As Beck mentioned, definitely check out Habibi Code. That is where I will be mentoring starting this month. So I believe the current signups should be closed by now, but it's recurring every 3 months. So definitely check that out if you are looking to break your way and just get some insight into jumping in the tech industry if it's your first time, especially if you are a minority. Just definitely check it out. Other than that, I'm on Instagram. My username is Mari.Yalong. You can find me there. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Perfect. Nice, easy. I love that.
Thanks.
Well, Mari, as I said, it's been a delight to have you here. Please don't be a stranger. We'll go ahead and close out the session. Any final words for our lovely viewers this evening?
Be yourself. Play video games. Play Disney Heroes Battle Mode.
There we have it.
And keep watching Pink Pixels.
Aw, thank you. I'm not gonna contest against that. Please, yes. You're amazing, Mari. Of course, absolutely. I'm so excited. I'll be stalking you on Instagram again soon. Be prepared to have some memes sent your way because that's how I communicate. So just fair heads up. And yes, to all of our wonderful viewers, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us in the conversations. I loved what I saw in chat. You all are amazing people. And if you are interested, of course, join the Gamers. We're a great organization that works to, connect other women with more women. Or if you want to support women, you don't have to be a woman to be a part of the Gamers and to join and to be a kind and amazing ally within this space. So give us a look. Right now, we have the Gamehers Awards nominations that are up. Finalists were just announced. So if you haven't, take a look over there and give some votes because remember, your voice matters. You get to help celebrate people in this space. And anytime that you get the chance to uplift people, to share a positive thought or note, we want to take advantage of that. The same reason why I'm remembering to thank some devs later this week. So... Good friends, we'll be here next week as well on Monday evening, and we'll see you all then. Bye, everyone.
Bye.